Recently that I'm kind of dumbfounded by it all. The birth of a baby is always a joy, but I find myself amazed at the miracle of life itself. And you know, I was told that Dr. Fred Cawthorn stood at the foot of the bed in the delivery room and said a prayer that his hands would be guided in the delivery of that baby, and that the life he helped deliver would be a good, useful one. And I appreciate that very much. Then you know, the human heart is a miracle in itself. It's so strong, and yet in so many ways, it's weak and soft. The baby comes into the world kicking, screaming, and really takes a lot of punishment that I guess is good for it. I'm reminded of an old line in a song: steel is strong because of the hammer and the white heat. Yet as a person grows older, its heart is hurt and broken so easily if love isn't showered on it. For love is all important. It's the one thing that makes a human a human. My friend, the late Red Foley, used to tell this very human story about another doctor, old Doc Brown. And I'd like to dedicate this song to doctors, nurses, to all medical people who help bring life into the world, and especially to those who help preserve life. He was just an old country doctor in a little country town. Fame and fortune had passed him by, though we never saw him frown. As day by day in his kindly way he served us one and all, many a patient forgot to pay, although Doc's fees were small. Though he needed his dimes, and there were times that he'd receive a fee, he'd pass it on to some poor soul that needed it worse than he. He had to sell his furniture, couldn't pay his office rent, so to a dusty room over a livery stable, Doc Brown and his satchel went. And on the hitching post at the curb below, to advertise his wares, he nailed a little sign that read, "Doc Brown has moved upstairs." One day he didn't answer when they knocked upon his door. Old Doc Brown was lying down, but his soul was no more. They found him there in that old black suit. On his face was a smile of content, but all the money they found on him was a quarter and a copper cent. But they opened up his ledger, and what they saw gave their hearts a pull. Beside each debtor's name, old Doc had written these words: "Paid in full." You know, I think old Doc should have had a funeral fine enough for a king. It's a ghastly joke that our town was broke. Nobody could give a thing, except Jones, the undertaker. He did mighty well. He gave an old iron casket he hadn't been able to sell. And the funeral procession, well, it wasn't much for grace and pomp and style, but those wagon loads of mourners stretched out for more than a mile. We wanted to give him a monument. We kind of figured that we owed him one because he had made our town a better place for all the good he had done. Well, we pulled up that old hitching post where Doc had nailed his sign. We painted it white, and to all of us it certainly did look fine. Well, now the rains and the snows have washed away our white trimmings of paint. Nothing left but Doc's own sign, and that's getting pretty faint. But you can still see that old hitching post, as if in answer to our prayers, mutely telling the whole wide world, Doc Brown has moved upstairs.